Okay, my name is Rick Thomas. Indian name is Tatonkamani, which is Walking Buffalo, which was a war chief after the 1862 Minnesota Uprising. And I just want to share, that I'm also acknowledged, especially for the Dakota Gathering, as a spiritual leader to provide appropriate prayers, songs, honoring the veterans, honoring various leaders such as Chief Wabasha, some of the Indian leaders and spiritual leaders. We all come together like Danny Seaboy. We consult with each other to make sure everything is done in a good Dakota way, because there's a lot of misunderstanding, miscommunication as far as who we are. We're probably a very misunderstood ethnic group or cultural group in America, and I think it's just that time of 2008 to be able to sit down and say, okay, let's map our direction, my relatives, and bring our Dakota people back together, And so that's the reason why I wanted to get involved. I come from the Santee Sioux Reservation in northeast Nebraska. We are the ones that were exiled. We're the ones that ended up in northeast Nebraska. And my relatives were the ones that were hung in Mankato, 38. From there, they marched to Port Snelling. From Port Snelling to Davenport, Iowa, where we had 95 more of our people die in prison, not because of wounds, but because of starvation and freezing. And then from there down the Mississippi to the Missouri River to Fort Crow Creek Reservation and to where we're at right now in Santee. So when you take a look at our history, it's such a traumatic trauma. And being a disabled combat vet, currently 100% disabled, I take a look at how traumatized my people were after the 1862 Minnesota Uprising. We're still today in this generation, we are still feeling the impact of the 1862 Minnesota Uprising, And we're scattered so far apart from each other, sometimes we don't even know that there's 4 more bands in Canada. And then also all the bands in Minnesota and Flangiu and Montana. I've always been told you need to know where you come from in order to know where you're going. And I think that's what's happening amongst Dakota people, is we call it Daku Wakunshkashka. There's something holy moving in Indian country. And we continue to proceed with that because we're the only race of people in the United States that has something to go back to. Our language, our traditions, our customs, our culture, you name it, it's there, And this is probably the best opportune time since 1968 when American movement started out. It awoke our spirit to be able to start looking at who we were. Yeah, Lyle, about 4 years ago, he came to the tribe, the Santee Sioux Nation in northeast Nebraska, and he explained the goals and objectives of the Cultural Diversity, the Diversity Foundation here in Winona, on what they wanted to do, and what they were doing. And we, of course, as reservations, we're kind of skeptical about what is happening out there in the country, But when it refers to us, we thought, let's see what's going on here. And so we started to travel this direction. And when you know the history of Winona, the Red Wing and Wabasha, Teoshpai, this is where they loaded us and sent us to Davenport, Iowa. And so I came up with a lot of curiosity. And I stood in the background the first, my 3 years ago, and I was watching and observing, and then I start to voice my concern, my opinion, start putting input into it. Next thing you know, they call upon me, to be able to assist culturally and spiritually, to make sure that everything was done in a good way. So last year I was part of it, and that's when I was kind of like a spiritual advisor. And this year I was the spiritual advisor, taking care of the honor guard, taking care of the morning blessings, the food, and stuff like that. So Lyle introduced that, and he didn't ask us to come aboard. He didn't ask us to be part of it. He said he just encouraged it. So we went ahead and got to know Lyle pretty good, and he brought down the mayor, he brought down people of this community, and that's inspiring. When you're sitting in a tribal unit way down in Nebraska, and Minnesota community comes in and says, this is what we're doing, Dakota Gathering. I don't think there's a city in the country or a village who is trying to do reconciliation with American Indians. This is probably the best year for Winona to be able to honor the Dakota Gathering, because this is a 150-year celebration for the state of Minnesota, and I don't know what else they're doing right now to acknowledge us. the original inhabitants of this state of Minnesota, you know. And so that's the reason why now Dakota Gathering, I see it's growing. Other nations are beginning to look this way, the Ho-Chunk, the Ojibwe, you know, a lot of tribes are looking this way and saying, what's happening here, you know. And so hopefully this could be a precedent, you know, to be able to reach out to all communities in the United States and see what they can do for their local tribes. Somebody has to make amends somewhere down the line because of the oppression and genocide that we had to experience, you know. And so I think this is one of the finest gatherings, you know, that I could say, you know, that bringing American Indian, especially the Dakota and the non-Indians together. A lot of understanding. There's people that didn't even know that Dakotas used to live on this land here. You know, they don't even realize that. But with the media and the gathering of this nature, a lot of awareness is happening. I see women that get up and cry. I ran a circle on Truth and Reconciliation yesterday, and there's a lot of emotions there, even from our own Indian people, you know. And so that turned out real good, you know, so I'm really glad that took place. So I just want to say, you know, it's been an honor for me that the Creator put me in places for me to know where I stand today, you know. And then my children, they're all talking their language, or singing the songs, or sun dancing. I've been a Sundance chief for 35 years, you know. And so it helped me to maintain my sobriety, away from alcohol, away from drugs, and become a role model for our Indian people, you know. So, and that's basically what I'm doing here in Winona now, is they asked me if I wanted to be the spiritual leader advisor, and it was an honor to be able to be part of that in that way with Ambrose Little Ghost from Spirit Lake Nation. A lot of us from the different bands, traditional people that still living our life, not practicing, living our way of life, to be able to walk so others can walk and leave some good tracks for our younger generation to follow.